if the United States and China are going to a trade war, India should be one of the beneficiaries because it's perceived as being close to the United States. That would have happened if Hillary Clinton were president or Barack Obama or anybody else. But given the unique nature of Donald Trump, we've got a situation where not just is he training his guns on China and upping the ante constantly, he's also got one missile system directed at India and firing away. How concerned is the Modi government from with the belligerence we're seeing from the United States? How do you think we should be dealing with it? Shamika Ravi.
Well, there are announcements and then there are actions, and in a lot of these international relations matters, there are multiple factors at play, and it isn't quite as obvious as it seems through only announcements. So it really will be about negotiating the trade agreements on specific matters with the US. But the larger question here is, and this is where we shouldn't be missing the woods for the trees in terms of, even if US and China were not in the middle of a trade war, the fact that China is aging and the cost of production in China is rapidly, it has grown over the last 10 years. We have seen a steady flow of businesses into other countries, emerging market like Vietnam, as Samiran mentioned, Kenya, Thailand, and this is where we really have to see that if this new trade war if it is to become a window of opportunity for us, then how exactly is the Indian market going to improve its competitiveness vis-a-vis some of these emerging markets to whom we have begun to lose business. So it really, you have to keep the larger view of international trade and India's competitive advantage. This particular episode, while it is important, given the growing India-US relations, but I don't think it really is as much of a roadblock as it's being made out to be.
Now the Indian government thinks it isn't much of a roadblock, and at the highest levels they were convinced that once a new government is in place, given the fact that we are willing to make allowances to the United States, that Donald Trump would fall in line. But we saw very recently the generalized system of preferences, or GSP, was withdrawn. So this is not something, Meghnad Desai, that the US is only talking about. They're actually acting on it as well. Now the best case scenario from an India perspective is that Donald Trump is a tough negotiator. You bargain hard with him, you give him what he wants, you allow Harley Davidsons, for example, to come into India virtually free. It's like giving him a lollipop, he'll be happy. Is that what it is, or do you believe we have a real problem on our hands? How do you think we should be dealing with it? Meghnad Desai.
You see, my view is that first of all, Trump's negotiating tactics are such that he always threatens the worst and then he tracks back and accommodates. So I think as far as his threat to India is concerned, we have to play a slightly longer game, not take it 100% seriously. He has done that with the European Union, he's done this with Mexico, he's done this with China and so on. So we have to calibrate our response so that we keep the American friendship and not immediately say, oh, America and China are fighting, so we are going to, sort of get some advantage. Secondly, I think as some of your participants said, India has to have a much more sophisticated economic machinery ready to take advantage of these opportunities. After all, we will have to, at some stage, reform our labor laws and our land laws for manufacturers to be able to locate in India. If people are not going to be in China and going to be in India, is India ready for that? Because we have a horrendously anti-labor policy in manufacturing. We have had it for 70 years and nobody has done anything about it. Now, I think we have to prepare the ground for this, because Make in India did not succeed very much. And so we have to find out why it did not succeed very much. Is it a land problem? Is it a labor problem? So if you're going to take advantage of this opportunity, as and when it comes, we will have to be prepared.
The problem we have now, Rajiv, is that some of the demands that he's making of India are virtually impossible to accept. If we renege on the S-400 deal with Russia, Russia will be upset. They could start selling those weapon systems to Pakistan. That creates a whole mess of its own. Suddenly, Pakistan has weapon systems we don't want them to have.
He's a tough negotiator, and we ought to be equally tough. exactly like what we have done with the Iran discussions. We have to drag it as much as possible. But there is a silver lining in this whole India and the world trade. If you look at the number of goods exported in the past 5 years, we've actually practically been stagnant. But if you look at services, Rahul, we have grown by 33%. We've grown by $50 billion. So we have an opportunity, at least in the interim, till all these things get sorted, in the services sector to continue pushing in that area and ensure that our services growth continues at this pace. We'll still be able to get enough forex as far as exports are concerned and continue with a tougher stand as far as negotiations are concerned. There will be give and take. Economic nationalism is a reality of today. It is raising barriers, every country is raising barriers around it. It is increasing the costs for their citizens, but it is a reality of today. Every country is doing it. So many countries are beginning to do it. So we have to then go into bilateral discussions with each of the countries that we can deal with. And also ensure, like one of the panelists was referring to, is that ensure that our FTAs are not to our disadvantage. But the best way, I would say, to deal with an India export crisis is to ensure that our domestic economy we are in control of, because 2/3 of our economy is still domestic economy, and we can get out of this problem by just dealing with the domestic economy, ensuring that domestic economy starts to grow.